After my elder sister jumped into the lake and was rescued, she claimed to have been reborn. She abandoned the noble son of the Prime Minister's family whom she had long admired and threw herself into the arms of my utterly ordinary fiancé. Anyway, he doesn't love you, he just sees you as my substitute. When he reaches the pinnacle of power, he'll abandon you, his lowly wife. I am merely the illegitimate sister, forced to smile and concede gracefully. My legitimate elder sister has already died once. Haven't you learned yet that men cannot be relied upon? Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now, the story begins. When Changfeng came to my family with betrothal gifts, he arrived in splendid attire atop a spirited horse, brimming with youthful arrogance. I risked getting scolded by hiding behind the screen to steal a glance. The man had clean-cut features, his jet-black hair tied high, his every movement exuding gentle humility, the most refined among ordinary people. I breathed a sigh of relief, feeling I might just be worthy of him. He discussed politics and history with father, displaying vast knowledge without arrogance, making father smile faintly and nod repeatedly. I pondered in my heart whether marrying him would give me a better life than staying in the Yun residence, when Changfeng behaved impeccably, showing not the slightest disdain or dissatisfaction with my status as a concubine's daughter, until my legitimate elder sister, Yun Xiu, returned from her travels. She barged into the room in a whirlwind, paying no heed to the servants trying to stop her. Her flamboyant peony-red dress billowed like burning flames as she moved, compelling Changfeng to involuntarily shift his gaze toward her. Yun Xiu, disregarding the presence of an unrelated man, leaned against her father's knee, raising her brows and blinking mischievously as she recounted amusing tales from outside. She spoke of how she chased off greedy peddlers, rescued harassed maidens, and even freed a little rabbit caught in a trap along the way. When Changfeng fell silent, he stared in awe at Yun Xiu's rosy, flushed cheeks. Her father caressed her black hair dotingly and chided lightly. "Axiu, we have guests. Mind your manners." The next second, when Changfeng's fervent gaze froze, it was like a bucket of cold water mercilessly dousing a newly kindled, fragile flame. Because the girl he was to marry was named Yunxia, not Yunxiu, the flowers fall with intent, but the stream flows heartlessly. When Changfeng sent me gifts through others, there was always a share for my elder sister, and in his letters of greeting, he would invariably add, "Give my regards to Miss Yunxiu." It's just a pity that my elder sister would always give it a cursory glance before tossing it aside. Her heart belonged to the eldest son of the Prime Minister's family, Zhao Qinchen. Young Master Zhao was dashing and handsome, surpassing even the legendary Pan En in looks, but father thought him too dissolute, past 20 with no ambition for fame or rank, only lingering in the fragrance of women's company, hardly a reliable match. The only thing he had going for him was his status as the Prime Minister's youngest legitimate son. Father ordered me to persuade my elder sister not to set her heart on a worthless lump of mud that can't even be propped up against a wall. I went. And as it happened, she was eating grapes sent by Zhao Qinchen. A man like young Master Zhao is someone you could never hope to reach in your lifetime. You should be happy for me that he has taken a liking to me. She scoffed at me instead, casually plucking a grape and playfully tossing it at my forehead, with a thud. I frowned and clutched my forehead. She burst into laughter. "Yunxia, don't be a sour grape just because you can't reach it." I lowered my head, silently enduring her insult. I was a concubine's daughter. My birth mother had been a maidservant who attended to father, and I was conceived by accident, to put it bluntly. I too am a servant. If the master is pleased, he grants me food. If displeased, beating me to death with a stick would be entirely justified. This was the lesson Yunxiu taught me. She tossed another grape at me, hitting the tip of my nose perfectly, making her giggle. "Do you know this single grape is worth a month of your wages? Only young Master Zhao could afford to give me such luxuries." She loved mocking me for being poor and stingy. "You," her eyes sparkled, "just like your dead concubine mother. Reeking of poverty, what could you possibly understand?" I lowered my head, staring at my shoe tips, and remained silent. My mother died because of Yunxiu's torment. When I was little, I was taking a nap when Yunxiu sneaked over to snatch my stuffed doll. My aunt tried to dissuade her, saying I would cry if I woke up and couldn't find it. She got angry and ran out to jump into the lake. With a nimble leap, she plunged in, terrifying my aunt, who had no choice but to steel herself and jump in after to save her. But she could swim, my aunt couldn't. She climbed back onto the shore without calling for help, just giggling as she watched my aunt flail and sink in the lake. By the time I was woken up, my aunt's body had already been carried out and buried. When questioned, Yunxio's usual trick was to cry, simple, crude, and effective. She said my aunt only went to the bottom of the lake to retrieve the money she dropped. She died because of her greed. My aunt brought it upon herself. It had nothing to do with her. Everyone believed her. So from that day on, I needed nothing but the money I carried with me. Seeing my silence, Yunxio snorted and casually crushed another grape between her fingers, letting its glistening juice drip to the ground. See, you can't afford these grapes, yet I can crush them as I please. Don't be so young and learn nothing but envy. Unable to bear others' good fortune, I lowered my head and replied, "Thank you for your guidance, elder sister." He took a few steps back and walked out. After that, I kept my mouth shut. Father was furious. Preferring to send her to become a nun rather than allow her to marry young Master Zhao, Yunxio was at her wits' end. Watching other women gain favor with young Master Zhao, she grew desperate. On a dark and windy night, Yunxio climbed over the wall and didn't return until dawn the next day. When she came back, her clothes were disheveled, her hair bun was askew, and several hairpins were missing. She proudly told me that she had secretly pledged herself to Zhao Qinchen. And as soon as father gave his consent, Zhao would come to the Yun residence to propose marriage. I was shocked, though not entirely surprised. "You're not even married yet, how could you?" She glared at me, jabbing her finger hard against my forehead. "You fool, with all those beauties around young Master Zhao, if I don't invest some serious effort, how could I ever hook him?" My scalp tingled with dread. "Then, how do we get father to agree?" She grinned mischievously. "I'll go find father later and say if I can't marry him, I'll jump into the lake. He'll surely think I'm just being dramatic. You wait by the lakeside. The moment I go in, you run and fetch father. Don't worry, I can swim anyway, it'll be fine." I was stunned. She hummed and frowned at me. "You're not still holding a grudge against me, are you?" I shook my head, putting on an obedient expression. As an unfavored illegitimate daughter, I've always been cautious with my words and actions, striving to be as invisible as possible. My only sense of existence came when others needed to use me. Father used my introverted and docile nature to showcase the harmony of his household. My elder sister used my dullness to accentuate her own noble radiance. As for Wen Changfeng, he too probably wanted to use me as a stepping stone to climb onto father's ladder to the clouds. Didn't he? I could almost foresee my future, but I don't care. I just want to survive, better yet, to survive with dignity. All those romantic notions pale in comparison to my own life. But before I could probe Wen Changfeng's heart, an unexpected incident occurred. After Yunxio fell into the water, I promptly called father back. But I never expected Wen Changfeng to also be in father's study. He had come to discuss our grand wedding arrangements. Upon learning of Yunxio's accident, father left in such haste he didn't even turn his head, though equally anxious. He merely glanced outside without following. "Second Miss Yun," he always called me that. As for Yunxio, he addressed her simply as Miss Yun. "Human lives are at stake. It would be improper for me to stay. I shall take my leave now." He lowered his head, cupped his hands respectfully, and made a proper bow. Good breeding prevented him from being fickle-minded, yet his wavering and divided loyalties were undeniable. I returned his greeting indifferently, as soon as he stepped out of the study. Yunxio's tearful cries grew louder as she approached. He paused. How I wished he would just turn and leave, without another thought for Yunxio, yet he still pretended to hesitate, glancing back with feigned uncertainty, standing rooted to the spot as he gazed expectantly toward the rear courtyard. "Master Wen," I called out, my voice trembling as an ominous premonition welled up in my heart. "Let me see you out." In 2 quick strides, I positioned myself before Wen Changfeng and gestured for him to follow. He still refused to leave. His gaze remained fixed on the direction of the backyard. Yunxio's voice grew closer, and within just a few breaths, she came running over, drenched from head to toe, her eyes rimmed red. She rushed straight into Wen Changfeng's embrace, clutching his waist tightly, and without a word, planted another kiss on his cheek. My heart was shocked, and I suddenly clenched my fingers tightly. That was my fiancé, the man I was engaged to. Yunxio knew about it. It felt as if all the blood in my body had frozen, and my chest was struck violently by a hammer weighing thousands of pounds, shattering me into pieces. When Changfeng froze in astonishment, he didn't push her away, but restrained his excitement and gently patted Yunxio's back. His lingering touch made my blood boil uncontrollably, blurring my vision. In that instant, it was as if a fire had burned away the illusions and hopes that had just risen in my heart. Yunxio dared not sleep at night and insisted I keep her company. In her eyes, I naturally wasn't worthy of sharing her bed, nor should I lay bedding on the floor, so I naturally fetched a wooden stool, sat by her bedside, propped my head on my arm, and listened to her speak. Yunxia, my past life was too horrible. Zhao Qinchen was no human. He only took me as a concubine, with countless bedmates. He abused and humiliated me, even gifting me to others like a present. I was just his pawn to manipulate people. My drowsy mind suddenly snapped awake. I looked at her carefully, but she didn't seem to notice anything amiss. You're quite the lucky one. When Changfeng rose swiftly through the ranks and actually became the prime minister, standing toe-to-toe with Zhao Qinchen, at this point, Yunxio was utterly baffled. After that, I died under Zhao Qinchen's torment. While when Changfeng's power reached its zenith, yet you took the initiative to propose a separation, claimed some money and shops, abandoned everything, and left. Yunxia, why do you want a divorce? He's already the prime minister now. Back then, the whole world knew of Wen Changfeng's prestige, truly, second only to the emperor, above all others. Yunxio's face involuntarily flushed crimson, her jade-like earlobes tinged a delicate pink. I listened silently. At first, I didn't believe it. Yunxia, I'm going to marry Wen Changfeng. He likes me. I know he does. She suddenly sat up, gripping my arm tightly. He only sees you as my replacement. Since you'll divorce him sooner or later anyway, why not just let me marry him? Seeing the determination in her eyes, I finally began to ponder the matter of rebirth carefully. For someone as haughty and profit-driven as Yunxio to dive headfirst into this, could rebirth truly be real? Moreover, will I divorce Wen Changfeng in the future? What on earth happened that forced someone like me, who only wanted to survive, to demand a separation? I'm absolutely certain I won't fall in love with Wen Changfeng. He must have done something that would lead to certain death, something that would implicate my past self, which is why I had no choice but to leave. I curled my lips into a smile. All right, sister, go ahead and marry him. If Yunxio is so eager to throw herself at him, then I'll just let her have him. The stool was hard, and I sat with my spine straight for several hours. Every muscle in my body ached, swollen and numb, yet I patiently listened as Yunxio recounted the tragedies of her past life and her unrequited love. Fearful yet agitated, her pent-up need to confide gave me an unexpected opportunity. It was as if only by speaking incessantly could she dissolve her resentment and lingering dread. I desperately tried to memorize every potentially useful detail, not daring to miss a single word. Until she fell into a deep sleep, moving quietly, I blew out the lamp. In the darkness, Yunxio's brows remained furrowed, her lips pressed tightly together. It seems she's unaware of what I've been doing behind her back. Yunxio's rebirth has disrupted my plans for revenge. Originally, I intended to manipulate her into marrying that libertine Zhao Qinchen. Now it appears I'll need to make some adjustments. Some things aren't forgiven just once, rather, they must be forgiven anew each time they come to mind. I'll never forget the day Aunt died. Yunxio clutched my cloth doll, tears streaming down her face, looking utterly pitiful as father cradled her in his arms to comfort her. With his back turned to me, father whispered soothing words to her, as if afraid the precious pearl in his embrace might shatter at any moment. Forget it, just a servant girl. If she's dead, she's dead. Don't be afraid, Xiaoyun. Yet it was my own birth mother who had died, but father told Xiaoyun not to be afraid. That evening, as the setting sun cast its slanting rays, father's tall figure was enveloped in a vast shadow. This shadow looms over me in every nightmare. I know neither my aunt nor I are favored, but we shouldn't, at the very least, live so wretchedly. I began to hate myself for taking that afternoon nap. I'm clearly just a concubine's daughter, an unloved servant girl. What right do I have to put on airs like a young mistress? As long as I don't take afternoon naps, my birth mother won't clash with Yunshio, nor will she drown. My birth mother is the kindest soul under heaven, the only one who ever cared for me. Even if all the beautiful words in the world were piled mountain high, they couldn't compare to a fraction of her goodness. She even appeared in my dreams, forbidding me to feel guilty and telling me to live well. I must not only live well, I will also make Yunshio pay the price, ensuring all who ever looked down on my mother suffer a fate worse than death. The next morning, I had just woken up and hadn't finished washing when Changfeng arrived in the front hall. Father closed the door and spoke with him in the study for a long time. At noon, they called me to join them for lunch. When I arrived, Yunshio and Changfeng were already seated, side by side, chatting and laughing. After I entered, their expressions changed slightly, and they fell silent. Father lifted his chin, signaling for me to sit down. Second Miss Yun. When Changfeng hastily stood up and bowed toward me, Yunshio glanced at me, then coquettishly tugged at his arm. Changfeng, we're all family here, no need for formalities. I remained silent and sat down. As expected, Father brought up the matter of me agreeing to dissolve the engagement, adding lightly, "You've been wronged." Then we began to eat. The implication was clear: this matter had already been decided, and I had no right to refuse. It has always been this way. What Yunshio wants comes first. My marriage, my dignity, even my birth mother's life and reputation, none of it matters more than Yunshio's happiness. At the dinner table, Yunshio kept serving Changfeng, piling food onto his plate and pouring his tea, her eagerness making him flush with embarrassment as he fumbled awkwardly. I should have been the most humiliated, the most furious person at that table, yet I sat there as if nothing were amiss. He kept glancing at me, gauging my reaction. After finishing the meal, I got up to leave, while Yunshio eagerly followed Father to the study to discuss the wedding arrangements. When Changfeng, seeing no one around, caught up to me and called out in a low voice, "Second Miss Yun, I have something to say to you." Today, he was dressed in a blue robe, looking refined and neat. Seeing me stop, he quickly stepped in front of me. With a look of shame, he said, "Allow me to apologize to you, Second Miss Yun, for failing to live up to your kind affections. Actually, I frowned impatiently. No need. I didn't show the sadness or humiliation he had expected. Without even waiting for his explanation, I turned and walked away again. He stood there dazed, waiting until I had gone far away, without chasing after me again. "Since you've abandoned me, why put on that pitiful act of helplessness? Do you really think I'd be heartbroken and sad?" After my marriage was called off, Yunshio busily prepared for her own wedding with great fanfare. The news that she was marrying down to Changfeng, a minor 7th-rank official, had also spread. To avoid suspicion, Yunshio ordered me to discard all the letters Changfeng had written me and the gifts he had sent. When going out, I was to deny ever being engaged to him otherwise. It would tarnish her reputation. If word got out that I stole my half-sister's man, wouldn't people laugh their heads off? She had the audacity to do such a thing, but others weren't allowed to speak of it. Yunshio was brimming with self-satisfaction, even beginning to put on airs befitting a prime minister's wife. She proclaimed herself to be heaven's favored daughter. Reincarnation was truly bizarre. If she wasn't the protagonist of this world, who else could possibly deserve that title? Therefore, this time she would undoubtedly fall in love with the right person and live the most glorious life imaginable. I wanted to laugh in my heart. Hadn't she thought the same way in her past life? In that past life, hadn't she also been utterly convinced that the one she loved was worthy? Now, in this life, just because there's the excuse of rebirth, does that make him more worthy than before? Did she not understand how fickle human hearts are? The person who would die for you one moment could abandon you for profit the next. Sure enough, Yunshio's joy didn't last long before bad news arrived. Zhao Qinchen, discovering she had abandoned him, a prime minister's son, for some obscure nobody, couldn't bear the blow to his pride and began spreading malicious rumors. He claimed Yunshio had failed to seduce him and, in a fit of anger, married someone else. As proof, he presented the hairpin she had dropped during their secret rendezvous that day, along with a scented handkerchief. Yunshio panicked. She quickly checked again. It was indeed lost during that intimate encounter back then. You bitch. Furious, she stormed over to me and, smack, landed a solid slap across my face. I was reading a book, completely caught off guard. You vile woman. Tell me, was it you who spread it? She raged, her delicate face alternating between pale and flushed. You're just jealous, aren't you? Couldn't stand me stealing your man, could you? I suppressed my anger, set the book aside, and said solemnly, elder sister, younger sister wouldn't dare, you wouldn't dare. She pointed at me with her finger and let out 2 cold laughs. Now that rumors have spread, if Changfeng becomes suspicious and grows distant from me, how can I still marry him, Yunxia? I don't care what method you use, now, immediately, at once. Go outside and admit that it was you who stole my clothes and hairpins to impersonate me and seduce Zhao Qinchen. Yunxia was genuinely terrified, her fingers trembling as if the stolen happiness might slip away at any moment. I put on a submissive expression. But, even if little sister admits to this matter, when elder sister reaches her wedding night with young master Wen, if he discovers there's no blood, that night when she sneaked over the wall to taste forbidden fruit, Yunxiu would inevitably pay the price. Yunxiu froze for a moment, biting her lip as a strange glint flashed through her eyes. Don't worry, father and I have already discussed it. We'll get him drunk, put out the lights, and since you resemble me by 6 or 7 parts, you'll take my place. He won't notice. Once it's done, after you've shed blood, make an excuse to wash up and come out. Then switch back to me. As long as there's blood on the wedding handkerchief, we'll have fooled them. I blinked, so the father and daughter had already planned everything out. What about me, sister? If I'm no longer a virgin, how will I ever marry in the future? She scoffed, her eyes narrowing with amusement. Yunxia, as long as the Yun family has a use for you, that's the greatest blessing you could ask for. With that, she shot me a warning glare before turning to leave. Clutching my stinging cheek, I watched as the maid beside me wordlessly went to fetch an egg to soothe the swelling. When no one was around, I finally laughed out loud in satisfaction. Good, Yunxiu in this new life was still the same as before. She took the bait effortlessly. I took out a piece of paper and began writing with my left hand. Continue spreading rumors about Yunxiu. Begin preparations for our escape. Additionally, investigate Wen Changfeng's preferred type of woman. Train one at any cost, sparing no expense. After writing this secret letter and carefully sealing it, I whistled for a carrier pigeon and sent the message on its way. Yunxiu wasn't wrong in her guess. I was indeed the one who spread the rumors, all to force her into making me the scapegoat. Only by becoming the scapegoat could I prepare for my eventual escape, though I'd been laying groundwork by Zhao Qinchen's side for a long time, planning to slowly torment Yunxiu after her marriage to him. I never anticipated this sudden rebirth business. I was initially worried that Yunxiu from my past life might discover my behind-the-scenes manipulations, but she remained as foolish as ever. I felt relieved, since she no longer liked Zhao Qinchen. Those pretty faces I'd bribed with money no longer needed to cling to him. The next target is Wen Changfeng. Yunxiu was absolutely right. I'm a wretched soul, greedy for money, just like my dead aunt, willing to risk my life for it. But money makes the mare go, and it could also make those devils pounce on Yunxiu, devouring her flesh piece by piece until nothing remained. Auntie had only been dead for a day when Yunxiu grew tired of that cloth doll. She had someone send the tattered doll back to me. The doll, sewn by Auntie's own hands, was a little horse. With malicious delight, she had cut off one of its legs, torn open its belly, pulled out the stuffing, and then used red ink to outline the shape of intestines. When the old woman returned the little horse to me, she didn't leave. Instead, she widened her eyes, curled her lips, and waited for my reaction, anticipating my wails. Oh dear, looks like the little horse has died. See here, its guts are spilling out. TSK, how pitiful. The old woman stared at me expectantly. I turned and went back inside, out again. I grabbed a pair of scissors. 3 cuts. 7 cuts. That cloth pony was torn to shreds by my frenzied hands. The old woman was terrified by me, her expression shifting from anticipation to stunned silence, then to horror, as she cursed and stumbled away. After she left, I set fire to the puppet and burned it to ashes. From that day on, all I wanted was money. My father, who never liked me to begin with, grew even more convinced that I was beneath him. He stopped even pretending to show me affection. Since I loved money, he figured giving me some gold and silver would suffice. I started reading all kinds of books, learning how to do business, finding ways to accumulate more wealth for security. I was cheated, threatened, and even picked up a beggar off the streets to be my front, managing my affairs in public. When I finally achieved some small success, I began setting up schemes. Piece by piece, I squandered money like dirt, determined to destroy everything Yunxiu held dear. I had people cozy up to Zhao Qinchen to compete for Yunxiu's favor, whispering poisonous words in her ear to lure her into illicit relations before marriage. But Yunxiu was reborn. Fortunately for me, even after rebirth, she remained the same fool obsessed with nothing but men. She was passionately discussing how ill-fated her love life was, while I was busy recording the political changes and public sentiments of the time. What was trending among the common people, which official had exposed their weaknesses, and who had emerged as a dark horse. These were the things that caught my attention. All of this would once again become my leverage for revenge against her. In the following days, I began going out frequently. When going out, Yunxiu forced me to wear the clothes she had worn during her intimate encounter with Zhao Qinchen and to adorn myself with her jewelry. She also began spreading rumors outside that I was promiscuous, seducing young Master Zhao. How dare a mere concubine-born daughter dream of entering the Prime Minister's household? I was utterly disgusted, yet I had no choice but to submit obediently. The more I was insulted, the greater my chance of escaping through this incident. After wandering aimlessly through the streets for a while, I went to my shop and climbed up to a hidden attic. Agu stood beside me, dressed in men's clothing. She was a beggar I picked up 5 years ago. It was the dead of winter then, and she had collapsed from the cold. I spent a fortune to save her. A girl, emaciated from hunger, was wrapped in damp, heavy straw in the bitter winter. If I didn't save her, she wouldn't survive that winter. Later, when she woke up and looked at me for the first time, I knew we were the same kind. Now, she is my second in command, from a scrawny bean sprout to a young woman who now stands a head taller than me. Agu is the person I trust most in this world. If rumors spread about you impersonating your elder sister to seduce men, there'll be no turning back for the rest of your life. Agu looked at me with concern. I waved my hand dismissively, completely unconcerned. Reputation is only capable of hurting you when you care about it. She looked at me with heartache in her eyes. Find me a Buddhist nunnery. I'm going to become a nun. Also, regarding the newly appointed officials on this list, start bribing and getting close to them. Make them show favor to Wen Changfeng. Spare no expense to pave the way for Wen Changfeng's rebellion. Agu was startled by me. Rebellion? Would he dare? Since Yunxiu predicted that night that I would divorce, I've pondered long and hard, envisioning many scenarios. Truth be told, Wen Changfeng is actually a decent candidate for a marriage of convenience. I could accept him not loving me, even using me as a substitute, no matter how many concubines he takes. I wouldn't care as long as I can live peacefully. But in my past life, I divorced. Yunxiu died not long after my divorce, and then was reborn. She didn't know why I divorced, nor what happened after the divorce. She only knew that Wen Changfeng had a limitless future, far better than that beast Zhao Qinchen. But is that really the case? What happened afterward must not have been simple. Her mind was so full of thoughts of the man that she didn't even stop to consider why things had unfolded this way. Therefore, I suspect Wen Changfeng harbored intentions of taking sides and rebelling. Once discovered, it would mean the extermination of 9 generations of one's clan. But Yunxiu died too early. She never knew whether in his past life he intended to rebel or conspired with others to do so. In this life, I will guide him down this very path. Moreover, if I were to tell that fool Yunxiu that she could gamble everything to have Wen Changfeng in theft as a prince or even become emperor, didn't she think she was the protagonist of the world? Wouldn't she covet the position of queen or royal consort? Gossip swept over me like a raging flood, forcing me to stay indoors. When others recognized me, they hurled insults, some even secretly threw rotten eggs and vegetable leaves at me, mocking my lofty ambitions for impersonating my elder sister to seduce the Prime Minister's son. Zhao Qinchen knew the truth, but he valued his reputation too much to defend a lowly concubine-born girl. Father bestowed piles of gold and silver upon me again. yet couldn't spare me a single glance. Yunshio joyfully prepared for her wedding next month. She would be married off. Father was also gambling big, frequently reprimanding and warning me while brainwashing me along the way. Shia, every person has their own destiny in this lifetime. Your destiny is to dedicate yourself to the prosperity of the Yun household. The day before Yunshio's grand wedding, he came personally to seek me out. Speaking to me heart to heart, Father first let out a sigh. You're also Father's daughter, and Father knows you've been wronged. He recited those words mechanically, his concern not reaching his eyes. But you know your sister's temperament. We're family. When she makes a mistake, as her family, we must help her. I nodded. Father is right. I only hope that years later, when Changfeng's crimes come to light and the Yun family is implicated, he can still mercifully say that family should share the burden. Execution is a family affair. We must all be present and accounted for. Seeing my calm demeanor, he momentarily lost his momentum. Don't worry, he said. After this is over, I'll make it up to you properly. I feigned gratitude. With the rumors having spread sufficiently, it was time to implement my escape plan. Father, your daughter seeks no compensation. I have but one request to make. He suddenly shut his mouth and looked at me warily. What? Rumors have been spreading like wildfire these days. Your daughter knows that staying in the Yun residence any longer would only bring disgrace to the family. 2 teardrops fell as I gazed pitifully at Father. I wished to leave home and become a nun, spending the rest of my days with a solitary lamp and Buddhist scriptures, praying for my sister and father. Once I sever ties with the Yun family, outsiders will have nothing left to gossip about. After I finished speaking, Father remained silent for a long time. Fearing he might refuse to let me go, I pressed on. This way, when word spreads, it will reflect Father's mercy toward his daughter. I, who stole my elder sister's clothes and hairpins, shamelessly tried to seduce the Prime Minister's legitimate son. Such crimes should have seen me drowned in a pig cage as a warning to others. Yet in your kindness, you allow me to shave my head and enter monastic life, sparing my wretched life. With reddened eyes, I choked out, Father, tell me, isn't this the best solution? There was genuine resentment in my words. It clearly wasn't my fault. I hadn't done anything wrong. Yet every time Yunshio acted impulsively, I ended up bearing the consequences, as if I were born to be the scapegoat. Everyone believes I was born to be a supporting character in stories, existing merely to highlight others. My greatest achievement would be taking knives for the protagonists. My happiness, my life, what does that matter? How could it compare to the love story of the main heroine? The study was silent for a moment. Then you will no longer be a daughter of the Yun family. Father's voice sounded slightly hoarse. Very well. Very well, though you'll have no ties to the Yun family from now on, I'll still send people to look after you there. I wiped away my tears with a handkerchief, drying up all the expectations and resentments of these years. This way, everything would become much simpler. I smiled and said, there's no time like the present, let's do it today. That way, when my elder sister marries tomorrow, no one will point fingers. Father hesitated only briefly before calling for someone to fetch my birth certificate and documents, as if afraid I might change my mind. In less than an hour, the person sent to inquire at the nunnery returned with a reply. It was the very nunnery I had secretly bribed. Sister Agu at the nunnery had tampered with things. Everyone there was on our side. That afternoon, Father went to the Yamen to make a public announcement. When Agu brought me the news, he said the gathered crowd was cheering for Father, praising him for doing the right thing, sacrificing family ties for justice, correcting his mistakes, and realizing his errors before it was too late. Father's grin nearly reached his ears. His worthless concubine-born daughter had finally been of some use. The next day, before dawn broke, the Yun residence was already bustling with activity. Everyone was busy to the point of not touching the ground, some attending to Yunshio's bridal makeup, others inventorying the dowry, and still others listening to the wedding matron's instructions. No one noticed me, the illegitimate daughter, slipping quietly out through the side gate. This time, I left with nothing. The clothes on my body and the hairpin were all purchased by me outside. I don't want this place to leave the slightest trace on me anymore. Agu was waiting for me outside. Beside her stood a spacious carriage, clutching a handful of wildflowers and dressed in an understated grey men's outfit. She raised her arm with a smile as she saw me approaching. Congratulations on your freedom. I hid outside for a month, according to AGU's informants. It wasn't until afternoon that Yunxiu and father realized I was missing. They searched until dusk, when Changfeng arrived for the wedding procession. Only then did they panic, cursing loudly in my courtyard and torturing my servants for information. Yunxiu was still waiting for me to offer my virginity to her love on our wedding night. Yet I ran away. Those servants were Yunxiu's spies all along. Beating them to death wouldn't reveal my whereabouts. Yunxiu married on schedule. She was no fool. On their wedding night, she used her monthly cycle as an excuse. Later, she likely devised other methods to avoid the matter altogether. When Changfeng still adored her beyond measure, willing to pluck the stars from the sky for her, their affection became the envy of many. For the entire month I was in hiding. Everyone in the Yun household searched for me, even turning the nunnery I was supposed to enter upside down. Concerned about saving face, they naturally dared not declare me missing. They could only grit their teeth and swallow their blood, claiming I had secluded myself in the nunnery to cover for me. They never imagined a mere concubine-born daughter would dare to run away, nor would they permit a concubine-born daughter to tarnish the reputation of their Yun household. Watching them get frustrated was amusing to me. A month later, I returned to the nunnery. That afternoon, Yunxiu arrived in a huff. Agu and I entered the nunnery together. Finally, she could openly accompany me. So when Yunxiu raised her hand to strike me again, Agu coldly intercepted her arm, saying, "Madam, please restrain yourself." Yunxiu stared at Agu in disbelief. This was the first time she'd tried to hit me and failed. Her face darkened as she looked down at me imperiously. "Yunxia, will you slap yourself, or shall I do it for you?" In the past, I would have trembled in fear, desperately slapping my own face until Yunxiu burst into laughter. But now, I raised my face, lifted my hand, and slapped her hard across the cheek. With a sharp crack, Yunxiu's meticulously maintained face quickly swelled red. She was stunned, as if she'd seen a ghost. The next second, she lunged at me with claws bared. "You bitch, how dare you hit me? Who the hell do you think you are? I've endured for over a decade. This is just the beginning of revenge, just one slap. And Yunxiu can't take it anymore." Agu stepped in front of me and swiftly restrained her arms. Unable to strike, Yunxiu began to berate me. She called me an ungrateful wretch, saying the Yun family had raised me for so many years. Yet when they needed me, I just turned tail and ran. If they'd known it would come to this, they should have let me drown with my mother. It would have been better. "I knew you vile creature were up to no good. Damn you, you deserve to die. You nearly ruined me." She hated me to the core, her eyes bloodshot. "Do you think you can stay away from the Yun family forever? Do you believe this measly little nunnery can protect you? Just wait until you return. Father will have your skin flayed off." I clasped my hands together, lowering my eyes and brows. Amitabha Buddha, elder sister, I'm so scared. What if father doesn't donate the incense money and the abbess gets angry? Then I won't have good days anymore. I'll go hungry, suffer cold, and be tormented every day. She froze momentarily, nodding instinctively. "Yes, you rely entirely on the Yun family's support. Without the Yun family, you're nothing. Ha ha ha." I suddenly burst into laughter, doubling over as if hearing the most hilarious joke. "Elder sister, the one who's always relied on the Yun family's support, who lives by depending on men, that's always been you, not me." Yunxiu hadn't expected me to be so impervious to persuasion. The me who had been utterly cowardly before had suddenly grown a backbone. She couldn't understand it, but there was nothing she could do. I was no longer part of the Yun household and had no ties to her. If she tried to force the issue, she'd only end up with another slap across her face. What's more, she was counting on me to cover up her scandalous seduction scheme. The Yun family could no longer do anything to me. No sooner had Yunxiu left than when Changfeng arrived. It was rare for men to visit a nunnery. He went straight to the abbot, specifically requesting me to resolve his doubts, and paid a considerable sum of incense money. In no time, he appeared before me. I hadn't intended to pay him any attention, but I couldn't resist when the abbot promised me half of that incense money. Fine, I can't afford to turn down money. It had been a long time since they last met, and when Changfeng looked even more radiant, brimming with vitality. Having married a beauty and gained the support of his father-in-law, when Changfeng would reach that position even faster than in his previous life. This time, his tone carried even more guilt than when he had broken off their engagement to marry someone else. Miss Yun, I'm sorry, if not for me, you wouldn't have been driven to sever ties with the Yun family and shave your head to become a nun. His gaze lingered on my grey robes and the smooth, pale neck exposed beneath them. He probably thought I'd been devastated by his actions. At this thought, I furrowed my brows, wearing a troubled expression as I sighed softly. Patron, what's done is done. There's no use saying anything more now. When Changfeng's lips trembled slightly, if you're willing, I could find a way to bring you out and take care of you. You mean, keep me as your mistress? I bluntly exposed the hidden meaning behind Wen Changfeng's words. How shameless, he tacitly acknowledged my words. Staring intently at me, Miss Yun, at this point, he still wants to use me to satisfy his selfish desire to redeem others. I smiled and decided to add fuel to the fire. Did your sister ever mention her rebirth to you? After a moment, he nodded. This fool, it's just as well he knows. My elder sister said you have the bearing of an emperor. Though we are not destined to be husband and wife, we are still half related by kinship at this moment. Young Master Wen should focus wholeheartedly on his future prospects, I sincerely advised. Though these words may sound somewhat presumptuous, I believe young Master Wen is exceptionally talented, second to none. You mustn't disappoint my elder sister. When Changfeng gave a sudden start, he seemed not to have expected me to hold him in such high esteem. His gaze was complicated, but in the end, he said nothing and got up to leave. A moment later, Agu emerged from behind the screen. She folded her arms and clicked her tongue, saying, Yunxiu is outrageously selfish, and this Wen Changfeng is also audacious beyond measure. Does he truly think he's some kind of extraordinary figure? Two people who share a bed are cut from the same cloth. Your decision to divorce in your past life must have been the wisest choice you ever made. I neither agreed nor disagreed. How are those women coming along in their training? Agu smiled. Very well, each is as lovely as a flower, even I. A woman, find myself drawn to them. Their gentle, tender nature is sure to win more affection than that aloof Yunxiu ever could. Good, find an opportunity to have them approach Wen Changfeng. Agu nodded. As the words fell, I felt somewhat dazed. I still remember that night when Yunxiu jumped into the lake. She said that in her past life, just a few months after marrying Zhao Qinchen, he had already grown tired of her. Many new women gradually entered his life, each with their own deep schemes. She kept fighting with those women, battling back and forth until both sides were wounded, always feeling as if she was being watched and toyed with. It was as if the most enchanting and seductive women in the world were all flocking to Zhao Qinchen. Now I am finally certain. Yeah, that was me too. With the information Yunxiu revealed after her rebirth, I quickly gained control over a group of minor officials, some with money, others with leverage. They began singing Wen Changfeng's praises at every opportunity, lauding his every word and deed, while women flowed into his residence like water. Yunxiu basked in the limelight for several years. Behind the scenes, she suffered immensely. Wen Changfeng loved her, but not enough. What one cannot obtain in youth will haunt them for life. Yunxiu transformed from an unattainable white moonlight into a readily available cinnabar mole, stripped of that halo. When Changfeng soon found her dull, Yunxiu began leveraging knowledge from her past life to help him consolidate court influence, all to vie for favor. When Changfeng matured with remarkable speed, now it was time for the pawn I'd nurtured for over a decade to make its move. His own ambition conspired with Yunxiu's greedy manipulations and the flattering sabotage I'd arranged through my agents. Soon, when Changfeng chose a political faction to align with, the Yun family had no choice but to board that same ship. From then on, fierce factional struggles began. When Changfeng began to feel overwhelmed, forced by circumstances to take actions from which there was no turning back, Yunxiu was starting to panic. She came to find me, demanding to know why I had divorced her in our past life. A full decade had already passed. Her robes were exquisitely luxurious, every jade hairpin in her coiffure worth a fortune, her face dusted with pearl powder and lips painted peach blossom red, but she looked exhausted, as if she'd aged 20 years. Every noblewoman and young lady in the capital would fawn over her, the Prime Minister's wife, yet now, she humbly tugged at my sleeve. begging me to tell her, Yunxia. Why did you divorce him in your past life? Sister, how would I know? You're the one who was reborn, I said with a faint smile. Besides, isn't it a bit late to be asking now? Yunxia's eyes narrowed, her fingernails were adorned with protective guards, inlaid with bright red and green gemstones. They dug into my arm, sharp and painful. I forcefully pried her hand away and took 2 steps back. This younger sister is but a wretched soul, destined neither for wealth in my past life nor entitled to it in this one. Yunxia's face turned ashen as she looked at me despairingly. Unable to obtain the answers she sought, she returned in utter dejection. 6 months later, evidence of Wen Changfeng's conspiracy to rebel was submitted to the authorities. The emperor flew into a rage and decreed the execution of Wen's entire clan, sentencing them to be beheaded after autumn. I'm no longer a member of the Yun household, so naturally I'm exempt from execution. When the imperial decree demanding the extermination of 9 generations arrived, I deliberately went down the mountain with ague to watch with relish amidst the crowd. It's not like this. Yun Xiu shoved away the officials trying to restrain her. Given another chance, I wouldn't make this mistake. It's impossible. The bystanders weren't about to indulge her, seeing her make a scene. They delivered 2 sharp slaps across her face. Stunned by the blows, Yun Xiu stood frozen in place. She suddenly began struggling desperately, initially clinging to the illusion that the Yun family could protect her. But when she learned that the Yun household was implicated and her father would also be beheaded, she started raving madly about her innocence. It wasn't me. The one who should die is Yunxia, my half-sister. She dredged up decade-old grievances, claiming it should have been her half-sister Yunxia who married Wen Changfeng. But who would listen to a dying madwoman? Agu stood by my side, muttering, even if it were you, you wouldn't die, you're divorced after all. Men, truly unreliable. Yunxiu boasts of being reborn in this life. Yet she's still walking the same path as her previous one. After being imprisoned, Yunxiu seemed to have gone completely mad, unable to accept the shattering of her beautiful dreams. She alternated between weeping and laughing, one moment overturning her food, refusing to eat even if it meant death, the next picking it up and stuffing it frantically into her mouth. Out of kindness, I went to visit her in the prison. When she saw me, she froze for a long moment before recognition dawned, then threw herself against the iron bars, wailing, Yunxia, you've ruined me. You deserve to die. You do. It's not my fault. Her hair was disheveled, her body reeking of sour filth. Covering my nose, I said, elder sister, oh no, I forgot. I'm no longer part of the Yun family. Miss Yun, after all, it was you who insisted on marrying him. For a moment, she was distracted. No, no. Did you already know when Changfeng's rebellion would fail? You knew in your previous life, didn't you? In this lifetime, you also thought of becoming a monk to preserve yourself. Faced with imminent disaster, Yunxiu actually had a rare moment of clarity. I didn't answer her question. For the sake of our past acquaintance, I'll see you off. She pounded on the iron bars, her body swaying wildly back and forth. You vile wretch, it's you who ruined me. I should have thrown you into the lake that afternoon, let you die with your whore of a mother. I must have been blind not to see you were the mantis stalking the cicada. Yunxiu was consumed by bitter regret. I reveled in her crumbling despair before death, savoring the sweet taste of vengeance fulfilled. If Miss Yun refuses to accept this, she'll just have to be reborn again. She shrieked like a ghost and stretched out her arms, trying to grab me. The violent commotion attracted the jailers. The jailer approached with his club, and as soon as he got close, Yunxiu clamped her mouth shut in fear and scurried to hide in the corner. The jailer snorted coldly before leaving again. She glared at me resentfully and said no more. After quietly watching her for a while longer, I left some tea money for the jailer and instructed him to take extra care of the Yun family members. As for Wen Changfeng and father, I couldn't even be bothered to look at them. They will reap what they sow. I want them to live as comfortably as possible until their execution day. Let them slowly savor this despair of impending doom. They mustn't hang themselves from this despair before that day arrives. The jailer was also quite easy to talk to. Holding the heavy money bag, he chuckled. The abbess is truly kind-hearted. It must be the blessings from her years of good deeds that spared her from sharing the same fate as these people. Don't worry, I'll make sure to take good care of them. They'll eat well and sleep well. I guarantee it, I smiled faintly, amid her. On the day of the execution, I deliberately changed into everyday clothes and, on a whim, even sewed a small cloth horse doll. Holding that childish doll, I stood at the very front of the crowd. Watching as they were beheaded one by one, Yunxiu was so terrified she lost control of her bowels. And when Changfeng wasn't much better, father, after all, had weathered many storms. Though his hair had turned completely white and his eyes were filled with despair, he still maintained some dignity in his bearing. When he saw me, father suddenly became agitated. Yunxia, he shouted loudly. Yunxiu and Wen Changfeng both turned their gaze toward me. I nodded with a smile. The noon hour had arrived, and the executioners raised their broadswords high. I also raised that little pony plush. Placing it in front of me, I fiddled with its 4 legs. Clip-clop, clip-clop. I acted out the scene of a pony galloping. Aunt died for this doll, and I kept it as their final gift. Yunxiu's already pale face suddenly turned ashen white. Father also seemed dazed. With a sharp crack, the executioners' broadswords fell in unison, one by one. Severed heads, their expressions frozen in terror and sudden understanding, thudded onto the dust-covered ground. The first thing I did with my newfound leisure, I erected a cenotaph for my concubine mother, making regular offerings ever since. The second thing, I confronted my nightmare of drowning head-on and learned to swim. Agu insisted on teaching me. The third thing, we went wandering again, Agu and I, a horse-drawn carriage, a few bodyguards, and piles upon piles of silver. We sail upon the emerald waves, admiring rivers merging into the sea. Through the woods we seek wild paths, then to the mountain temple under moonlight in search of osmanthus blooms. Rising early, we mind not the morning chill. Returning late, we fear not the frosty cold. These magnificent rivers and mountains have healed much within me. Long afterward, when we spoke of those past events again, Agu said I had too much patience. 10 years of silent endurance, playing such a grand game behind the scenes while showing nothing on the surface, waiting for Wen Changfeng to mature, waiting for the Yun family to fall, waiting for all grievances to be settled by the passage of time. At last, vengeance was finally served. Agu asked me with emotion, "Were you afraid when you first learned that Yunxiu had been reborn?" I smiled. Perhaps it was heaven's will for Yunxiu to fully taste the fruits of karma. That's why she was granted rebirth. Some sins, a single lifetime of atonement is never enough. The second story, on my husband's 35th birthday, he requested permission from the emperor to retire from military service, as the great general who guards the nation. His military exploits were illustrious. When the emperor asked what reward he desired, he knelt before the throne with all his battle honors and pleaded, "I beg your majesty to grant my child who has been wandering abroad an official status. Fu Chengyan and I have shared deep marital affection for over a decade. Back when the imperial physician said I would have difficulty conceiving, he never minded. He even secretly took sterilizing medicine himself, saying he'd rather remain childless forever than let this princess suffer even the slightest heartache. Now, the words he spoke at the banquet have made me the biggest laughingstock of the dynasty. Only then did I realize that the love and affection he had shown me for over a decade was all a lie, while his secret family with another woman was the truth. Fu Chengyan wanted to secure a legitimate status for his illegitimate son, leaving me, his lawful wife, twisting in the wind. But he forgot I am the princess of this dynasty, and all his glory and wealth were merely bestowed upon him by me. The emperor gazed at Fu Chengyan kneeling on the ground, his face as dark as still water, remaining silent until sweat poured down the man's back. In the end, he merely brushed it off with a casual remark, "This matter concerns only you and the imperial sister, best discussed after the banquet concludes." The rewards were gone, and Fu Chengyan's jubilant expression turned to terror. The hall full of high-ranking officials and noble ladies looked at me as if I were the biggest joke in the world. I am Princess Jiahe, married to Fu Chengyan for over a decade. Our marital bond has been deeply affectionate, and despite my inability to conceive, Fu Chengyan never uttered a single word of complaint. When the imperial physician declared my constitution too frail for childbearing, he even pleaded for a sterility prescription on my behalf. That day, he vowed, "I would rather have no descendants than risk losing Shua. Shua is my life. I cannot let any harm come to her." His words and deeds spread far and wide, moving many to sigh in admiration how deeply devoted the consort of Princess Jiahe was. Some were even inspired to compose poems and chronicles in his honor. But now, he tells me he already has offspring and wants the child to be recognized by the family lineage, recorded under my name, back at the princess's residence. Before I could even sit down, Fu Cheng'en stammered, "Shuyun, Cheongyang is outside the manor with Anna. They wish to see you." Before I could speak, he quickly added, "I know you wouldn't make things difficult for them, mother and son. Could you please have the servants bring them in?" As soon as the words were spoken, my personal attendant hurried in. "Your Highness, that woman is standing at the manor gate with her child, insisting on seeing you but refusing to enter." A crowd has already gathered outside. Upon hearing this, Fu Chenzhen immediately rushed out. "Cheongyang, why must you do this?" He looked at the delicate woman standing at the door, his eyes filled with heartache. The woman called Cheongyang stood before the mansion with her child. She had a gentle and charming appearance, with delicate skin that made her seem several years younger than me, though I was a princess. I didn't possess her tender loveliness. No doubt Fu Chenzhen had doted on her greatly these past 10 years. Beyond financial support, there must have been abundant love to keep a woman so carefree and radiant. As soon as Cheongyang saw me, she fell to her knees with a thud. "I beg your Highness to grant an illegitimacy. He is my husband's flesh and blood. Whether I can enter the household or not doesn't matter, nor does my status. I only ask that your Highness, for my husband's sake, allow Anna to be recognized by his ancestors." Having said this, she kowtowed heavily, her forehead striking the ground with a loud thud. The two men before her could hardly bear the sight, their hearts aching. Fu Cheng'en spoke with difficulty. "Shuyun, all the blame is mine. At the time, I was drugged in the brothel, and Cheongyang had no choice but to use her own body as the antidote to save me. Otherwise, I would have fallen into someone else's trap. Cheongyang never asked me to redeem her freedom. It was only later, when she became pregnant, that she had no choice but to seek me out. Because the Madam of Baihualu demanded she take clients, she could only come to beg me. Seeing her pitiful state and remembering she had once saved me, I helped redeem her freedom and bought her a small courtyard to live in. All these years, Cheongyang has never asked for anything, neither status nor wealth. She has simply lived quietly and properly, raising the child. Now that the child is grown, it's not right for them to be called a bastard. I beg your Highness to take pity on her loneliness and helplessness, and allow her and the child to enter the estate." I sneered mockingly. "Lonely and helpless? Hasn't she always had you, her husband?" Cheongyang said in a delicate voice. "Your Highness, please calm your anger. The consort's heart belongs only to you. It was my own presumption. I couldn't bear the child not seeing their father, so I pleaded desperately and only managed to secure a chance for the child to meet him once a month. All these years, the consort has only seen Anna once a month, never lingering with me for even a moment. His heart and eyes are solely for your Highness, if not for the child growing up and needing education, with no other choice. I would never have dared to disturb your Highness's peace. Anna is bright. The tutor says he could take the imperial exams in a couple of years, but he lacks a clean lineage and cannot acknowledge his own father. Your Highness, please consider how deeply devoted the consort has been to you all these years. Grant this child a chance at life." The Fu clan members watching nearby also chimed in with persuasion. "Princess, Chenzhen is already past 40 without an heir. Now that he finally has his own flesh and blood, why not acknowledge the child? It's common for men to have multiple wives and concubines. Surely being a princess doesn't mean forbidding the consort from taking a concubine. Of the 3 unfilial acts, leaving no descendant is the gravest. Even a princess should consider the Fu family's lineage." Everyone was talking at once, putting me on the spot as if my refusal would make me the villain who doomed the Fu family to extinction. The onlookers outside were also buzzing with gossip, each with their own take. Wasn't it said that the imperial consort and the princess were deeply in love, and that he even took sterility medicine for her? How did such a big child suddenly appear? So you see, you can't trust a single word men say. What's the use of all that affection when he's secretly keeping a mistress? That woman came from the 100 Flowers Pavilion. So, is this child really the imperial consort's? This child looks to be over 10 years old. Is the imperial contraceptive that ineffective? How could he still father children with an outsider after drinking it? Fu Chengyan's face turned pale, then flushed with anger. Naturally, he heard the commoner's remarks and could only plead with me in a low voice. Shuyun, your reputation is at stake. Let them enter the residence first, and we'll discuss this later, now that the royal family's private affairs have become the talk of the town. I had no choice but to let Fu Chengyan bring the mother and child into the residence. As soon as they entered the inner courtyard, he fell to his knees with a thud. Shuyun, I know it's all my fault, but what's done cannot be undone. It's just adding 2 more mouths to feed. If you agree to let them stay, I swear they'll never appear before you. I promise you too, I will never meet Chongyang in private. My body and my heart belong only to you. I closed my eyes, feeling as if my heart had been violently wrenched out and thrown to the ground. The next day, the Empress summoned me to the palace. Seeing my haggard face, she sighed deeply. Shu, your royal brother said that although Fu Chengyan has achieved military merits, he won't spare him if he dares to betray you. You've been treasured like gold since birth. How could you let them insult you? His Majesty says you should do whatever you wish, just don't torment yourself. I closed my eyes and whispered, Imperial sister-in-law, tears streaming down my face. Fu Chengyan and I had been childhood sweethearts, married young, yet all those years of affection turned out to be nothing but lies. Last night, the side courtyard of the princess's residence was brightly lit as Fu Chengyan personally escorted Chongyang and her child into the inner quarters. Opening the storerooms, a steady stream of treasures was carried to the Tinghua pavilion, decorating the courtyard extravagantly, more exquisite and grand than even my own chambers. Even when the matron went to fetch my calming tonic, she found the stoves completely occupied, simmering with Chongyang's various tonics. The kitchen maids trembled as they pleaded. His lordship's orders. He even stewed the bird's nest himself. We wouldn't dare interfere. Matron, please forgive us. The old nurse returned with a face livid with anger. I let out a bitter laugh. It was only my first day in the mansion, and even my private kitchen had been taken over. It was clear that Chongyang couldn't just be a woman he had a fleeting affair with. She must be the one he cherished most in his heart. This was originally my mansion. The only reason Fu Chengyan dared to act so brazenly was that, over the years of marriage, I had loved and indulged him so much that he forgot his place, forgot that I was the true master here. The old nurse had long warned me that there was a distinction between master and servant. If I spoiled the consort too much, trouble would come sooner or later. But Fu Chengyan had treated me so well, I foolishly believed he would never betray me. As it turned out, I couldn't have been more wrong. I was too lazy to return home and face them, so I simply stayed in the palace for a few days to clear my mind. But when I finally returned to the princess's residence, I found it bustling with guests. The courtyard outside packed with carriages. Chongyang was dressed in dazzling jewels, looking nothing like a woman in her 30s. Fu Chengyan held her hand as they toasted the guests together, while their son was the center of attention at this banquet, a happy family of 3. Holding a recognition banquet in my own residence. Half drunk, Fu Chengyan laughed heartily and declared, Today, I've already explained to the clan elders and opened the ancestral hall. From now on, Anna is rightfully a son of the Fu family. His name is Fu Jian, my son, Fu Chengyan's son, and also your highness's son. When the princess returns, I will petition to have Anna registered under her name, making him her legitimate heir from then on. I laughed angrily. After just a few days away from the manor, I've suddenly acquired a legitimate heir. All the guests froze upon seeing me, rising hurriedly to pay their respects. Greetings to Her Highness the Princess, Your Highness. Yesterday we received invitations stating you would formally recognize this child as your heir today, which is why we specially came to offer congratulations. Yes, I never expected Your Highness to be so magnanimous. I raised my eyes to Fu Chengyan, my face as dark as storm clouds. I've only been in the palace for a few days. Yet the princess's residence has already changed hands, and you've even acknowledged a son. Even if you truly wish to take a concubine, you should at least offer me the concubine's tea. Without proper rights, how dare she step through the gates of the princess's residence, Fu Chengyan, without my consent? How dare you acknowledge a child in my name? Just a bastard born from some brothel whore. Your Fu family has no standards. sweeping up any filth into the household. And now you expect this consort to acknowledge him as a son. Is he even worthy? Are you suggesting that in the future, the bastard born of your mistress should address the imperial princes and princesses as brothers and sisters? The Fu clan patriarch glared at Fu Chengyan and demanded, "Didn't you claim the princess had acknowledged this child's status? How could she be completely unaware?" Fu Chengyan looked at me, his eyes brimming with pleading. "Shuyun, whatever you have to say. Let's discuss it after the guests leave, with everyone present today. Grant me this face, let's not argue now." "Alright, we can settle everything once the banquet is over." I snorted coldly. "Over? You randomly dump a son on me, the princess's legitimate heir who'll be granted titles and ranks in the future. Have you even considered whether he's worthy?" Fu Chengyan said sharply. "Enough, Shuyun, Anna is my flesh and blood. Even if you're a princess, you're still my wife. Doesn't that make my son your child too? How is he unworthy? By your logic, am I unworthy to be your husband either?" He stood opposite me, speaking harshly with raised voice, while Cheongyang and the child hid behind him. Fu Jian comforted softly, "Father, don't ruin your health with anger. After years of campaigning everywhere, your constitution isn't what it used to be. You should take better care of yourself. If you get this angry, mother will be heartbroken." Cheongyang clung tightly to Fu Chengyan's side, looking at me timidly. "Your Highness, I only ask for a place to shelter myself and Anna, and I promise not to be a bother to you. Is even this too much for the princess to grant? After all, he is my husband's child. Could the princess truly bear to see my husband left without an heir? If the princess harbors resentment towards this humble concubine, I am willing to leave the child and depart, as long as the princess acknowledges Anna. Even if it means granting me a white silk cord, I would accept it willingly. From then on, Anna would have only you as his mother and would honor only you, his esteemed mother. Would that be acceptable?" Fu Jian clung tightly to Cheongyang, tears welling in his eyes. "No, mother. If I were to forsake you for the sake of my future, what kind of person would I be? Even in death, a son should always stay with his mother." Cheongyang and Fu Jian clung to each other, weeping bitterly. Fu Chengyan glared at me through gritted teeth. "Your Highness has such a cruel heart. Just because you cannot bear children, must you be so vicious? Must you drive them both to their deaths before you're satisfied? Even if you're a princess, you married into the Fu family, you're my wife, Fu Chengyan. Taking concubines to continue our lineage is my right, and your refusal is nothing but jealousy. Even if this were brought before His Majesty, there would be no reason for the Emperor to show favoritism. Your Highness would do well to think carefully. I am determined to bring Cheongyang into this household, and your consent is not required." After more than a decade of marriage, he had never once spoken harshly to me. Now that he showed his true colors, it was as if he had become a different person entirely. I looked at him, then at Cheongyang sobbing on the floor. What a magnificent performance, with a faint smile curling my lips. I said, "Since Cheongyang has borne you a child, consort, it is only right that you should marry her." Fu Chengyan looked at me with evident relief. "Shuyun, I knew your heart would soften. I knew you would understand. Rest assured, even after Cheongyang enters our household, I will remain as devoted to you as ever. You alone hold the deepest place in my heart." I raised my hand to stop him from continuing, straightened my back, and looked at Cheongyang, whose eyes were full of anticipation and a hint of secret delight, before speaking calmly. "Fu Chengyan, from this moment on, our marital ties are severed. Whomever you wish to marry or take as concubines in the future will have nothing to do with the princess's estate. I have already petitioned His Majesty. Today, before all these witnesses, I, Li Shuyun, hereby divorce you." The guests in the estate were stunned. Fu Chengyan stammered, "Shuyun, what are you saying? Divorcing your husband? We've been a loving couple for over a decade, and you want to divorce me over such a trivial matter? How can you be so temperamental? If word gets out, people will only say you're jealous. How could we tarnish your reputation like this?" I gave a cold laugh. "General needn't worry about my reputation. Thank you all for coming. The princess's residence is not hosting any banquet, nor recognizing any legitimate heir. You may take your congratulatory gifts and return home." Fu Chengyan was utterly devastated. He looked at me, his face ashen. "Shuyun, how could it come to this? If you truly refuse, We can still discuss alternatives. I took a step back as the matron stepped forward, handing him a piece of paper. General, please accept this. It's the letter of divorce personally written by Her Highness. The general should also pack his belongings and vacate the princess's residence promptly. This will prevent any delays when the imperial guards arrive. Lest it interfere with your recognition of the legitimate heir and your new marriage. The entire assembly of guests stood frozen in shock. The princess was actually divorcing her husband. You're absolutely right. His Highness is of royal blood, while Fu Chenzhen, despite his military achievements, is merely a subject. How dare he keep a pampered mistress and humiliate His Highness like this? Does he expect His Highness to live under the same roof as a brothel prostitute? Back then, he willingly drank that sterility potion himself. How is it that now, in middle age, he's starting to regret it? Who knows if that sterility potion was real or fake? If it was genuine, where did this illegitimate child come from? Such plots are common in storybooks, a brothel girl saving a drugged young master by offering herself, then later being elevated into the household by virtue of bearing his child. There are plenty of tales like this, no doubt. This mistress is following the same script. Fu Chengyan stepped forward to grab me. Shuyun, no, how can you divorce your husband? Do our over 10 years of marital affection mean nothing to you? I flung his hand away. Of course they mean nothing. Otherwise, where did your mistress come from? And where did your illegitimate child come from? You raised that bastard behind my back all these years. Now you want to give him status and his mother a proper title, or else I'm the unkind one. Fu Chengyan, I'm afraid you've miscalculated. If I were truly unkind, and your concubine and son were to suddenly drop dead in this mansion one day, who would dare say a word against me? I'm letting you have your way, allowing you to be with your wife and child openly. What more could you possibly be dissatisfied with? Fu Chengyan looked at me with restrained anger. Enough, Shuyun, must you always threaten me with divorce whenever things don't go your way? Chungyang bore me a child, she's made great contributions. Can't she even be allowed to enter our household as a concubine? Anna is my Fu family's descendant. Doesn't he even deserve to have his status recognized? You can't bear children, yet I've never once complained. Chungyang gave me an heir. But you've made endless difficulties for her and publicly humiliated her. This is truly intolerable. Fine, if you want a divorce, then divorce. Just don't come crying with regrets later. The matron eyed him coldly. General, pack your things and leave the estate at once. And one more thing. Those relatives of the Fu family who've been freeloading at the princess's estate should leave too. All those aunts and cousins staying at Her Highness's villa must depart as well. We're hosting a banquet there in 3 days, don't spoil Her Highness's mood. The Fu family members immediately swarmed around Fu Chenzhen, urging him, Chenzhen, you're now the nation-pacifying general, how can you let yourself be bullied by a mere woman? Exactly, even if she's a princess. Without your military achievements, could she live so carefree? That's right, even if you part ways with the princess, you're still the guardian general of the nation, what's there to fear? The matron glared at him coldly. General, pack your belongings and leave the estate at once. And those relatives of the Fu family who've been freeloading at the princess's estate, they should leave too. All those aunts and uncles staying at Her Highness's villa must depart together. Our princess's villa will host a banquet in 3 days, don't ruin Her Highness's mood. The Fu family members immediately swarmed around Fu Chenzhen, urging him, Chenzhen, you're now the guardian general of the nation. How can you let yourself be threatened by a mere princess? That's right, even if she is a princess, without your military achievements, could she live such a carefree life? Exactly, even if you separate from the princess, you'll still be the guardian general. What is there to fear?
He emphasized his devotion to his wife and service to his master, ostensibly showing approval, but actually delivering a veiled warning. All these years, if not for me balancing things for him, he would have long lost imperial favor. Fu Chenzhen was quite pleased with himself, believing that even though he had left the princess's estate, he could still rely on the prestige of the guardian general title to secure a place in the capital. Chungyang had always been pampered by Fu Chenzhen and had never done any heavy labor. This time, after leaving the princess's estate without bringing any servants, they had to handle everything themselves. It took them several days to finish tidying up. Barely managing to prepare a few livable rooms, Looking at her roughened hands after days of work and feeling sore all over from exhaustion, Cheung-young burst into tears and said, "Husband, please hurry and buy a few servants. I truly can't take it anymore. I haven't suffered like this in over a decade." Fu Chenjen glanced at their dwindling silver and tried to console her. "Just endure a little longer, when I requested the Emperor's permission to retire from military service. His Majesty allowed me a few days to reconsider. I've decided to report to the court tomorrow. I'm still in my prime and can continue serving the Emperor. The Emperor will surely be overjoyed, and there will be rewards aplenty. Commanding servants and maids will be trivial matters. Wait till I secure an official title for you, making you a proper noble lady." Yet the very next day at court, before he could even speak, the Emperor had already issued an edict. "Our beloved Minister Fu, regarding your request to retire from military service, we have considered it. You have toiled these many years, and it is indeed time to let younger generals gain experience. Your request is granted. Shortly, you shall hand over your military tally to the cavalry general, who will take over your duties. Minister Fu, from this day forth, you are relieved of your armor to return to the fields and enjoy your remaining years in peace. Court is dismissed." With that, the Emperor departed with several high-ranking ministers to the imperial study for further discussions. Fu Chenjen stood frozen, about to speak when the surrounding ministers crowded around him. "Ah, General Fu, now you can enjoy wealth and honor in peace. What splendid fortune. We heard General Fu is taking a new wife. Don't forget to invite us to the wedding feast. General Fu, though you're no longer the imperial son-in-law, with a lovely wife and beloved children, your heart's desire is fulfilled. Truly, the princess must be remarkably tolerant. Anyone else would have had your entire family executed long ago." Fu Chengyan's face changed dramatically, unable to utter a word, while the cavalry general looked at him with a beaming smile. "General Fu, let's go. We happen to have some military affairs to hand over." He strode ahead with vigorous authority, thoroughly basking in his triumph. After handing over his military tally and concluding his official duties, Fu Chengyan left the palace and returned home. The moment he stepped through the door, Cheung-young came forward to greet him, asking with a smile, "Husband, what did the Emperor say? Did he bestow us with a mansion and treasures?" Fu Jian also chimed in playfully. "Did he confer upon Mother the title of first-rank noble lady?" But they didn't receive Fu Chengyan's reply, only saw him collapse into his chair. His face ashen as he muttered, "Everything's gone. The Emperor approved my request to retire from military service and return to farming, ordering me to surrender my military tally. Now everything is lost." Cheung-young shrieked. "What do you mean everything's gone? Are we supposed to live in this shabby courtyard from now on?" The Fu clan members also cried out in alarm. "How could the Emperor approve this? Go tell His Majesty it was all just a joke," Fu Chengyan said. "The Son of Heaven's dignity is too great for me to jest about," the Fu family members hurriedly advised. "Why don't you go and coax the princess again? After all, you've been married for many years. A few sweet words from you will surely make her change her mind." "That's right. At worst, you can tell her that Cheung-young and the child won't enter the Fu family's door. After all, your future is what matters most, as long as you have power and status. Cheung-young and the child can still enjoy good days. Why care about these formalities? If you end up with nothing, what's the point of them suffering hardships with you? Right, you can't just watch our whole clan ruin our future together and suffer hardships, can you?" Fu Jian supported his pale-faced mother and retorted, "Uncles, you all agreed when Mother entered the family back then. How can you turn your backs on her now?" The Fu family members looked at them with disdain. "Who said we agreed? Your mother had no status to begin with. The princess is Chang'an's rightful wife. Are you saying we should abandon the lawful wife for a mistress? Besides, when your mother was pregnant with you, things were indeed unclear. It's only natural for the princess to have doubts." "Exactly. How could the legitimate heir of the Fu family be born from a brothel prostitute? Such a story would never hold water in the future." The next day, Fu Chengyan arrived at the princess's residence with my favorite pastries. When he entered, he saw me reclining on a jade couch, surrounded by maidservants and several eloquent scholars adding to the amusement. His expression darkened as he said, "Shuyun, how have you become like this? You even dare to keep male concubines." Everyone looked at him, and I burst out laughing. "What? General Fu still thinks he's the consort. Now, whether I keep male companions or not has nothing to do with you. Besides, these gentlemen are newly renowned scholars from the capital, all from noble and prominent families. Hearing of my fondness for poetry, they came today to pay their respects and introduce me to their poetry society. How is it that in General Fu's eyes, Everyone is as preoccupied with carnal matters as you are." Upon hearing these words, the group cast peculiar glances at him. His face flushed with embarrassment as he placed the pastry before me. "Shuyun, I queued for 2 hours this morning specifically to buy you these lotus cakes from Baiwei Lu, your favorite. Do you still like them?" I glanced up and pointed at the snacks on my table. My cook happens to be Baiwei Lu's head chef. She can make all their pastries, so there's no need to trouble General Fu. Fu Chengyin took a step forward, his face pleading. "Shuyun, I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have hurt you over a child. I've thought it through. I'll give Chongyang and that child some money to return to their hometown. We'll sever all ties and start fresh. Would that be all right?" I burst out laughing. "Fu Chengzhen, start over with you. Are you even worthy? You're old, powerless, and penniless. What could I possibly want from you? Your advanced age or your poverty? I am a princess. If I marry you, you become a royal consort. If I discard you, you're nothing but mud on the ground. Do you think I'm desperate for you? Back then, countless men sought my hand from the emperor, yet I chose you, a penniless martial arts champion with no family background. A man like you dared to keep a mistress behind my back, deceiving me for over a decade just for an heir. Fu Chenzhen, you truly disgust me. But I can give you a gift as a reward. Guards, bring him in," I commanded. Soon, a filthy man was brought before me. The moment he saw me, he began to wail, "Spare my life. I truly know nothing. Please, princess, have mercy. I was just a worker in the brothel back then. One of the girls there gave me a packet of powder and told me to slip it into General Fu's drink. She said she had long admired the general and wanted to spend a night with him. Who knew that after I succeeded in drugging him and took the silver to return home, I found out someone had hired assassins to kill me. I had no choice but to hide. At first, I thought it was the princess's people. But after several close calls, I realized the ones trying to kill me were the very same person who ordered me to drug the general. I stared at him. Who exactly told you to drug him? Would you still recognize them now?" He nodded hurriedly and said, "Though so many years have passed, I would still recognize her if I saw her. When that courtesan gave me the silver, she had a mole between her eyebrows. I'd spot it at once. Chongyang indeed had a mole between her eyebrows." I looked at Fu Chenzhen with a faint smile and ordered the servants, "Bring General Fu's new wife here." Fu Chenzhen wore a puzzled expression. When Chongyang was brought in, the man pointed at her and cried, It's her, Your Highness. She's the one who told me to drug him when the general was unconscious. She took advantage and offered herself, pretending she had saved him. Your Highness, please grant this humble one justice. I am truly wronged." When Chongyang saw the man's face, she turned deathly pale and staggered backward. "What nonsense are you speaking? I don't know you at all." The man stood up. "You don't know me. The apprentice who sold you medicine at Huichun Hall back then was my fellow villager. He still remembers your face clearly. You poisonous wretch. After poisoning others and playing the innocent, you successfully deceived the general into redeeming you, becoming his mistress, and then began hiring assassins. What a viper-hearted whore." Fu Chenzhen was thunderstruck, staring blankly at Chongyang as he said, "Was it your trap? Back then, you saved me by giving yourself to me. Was it all a lie? I redeemed you, kept you all these years, even had children with you, planned everything for you, and in return, you pretended to be innocent, only to come and ruin me. If you hadn't tricked me into fathering Anna, the princess wouldn't have divorced me. Today, I'll kill you." The man suddenly burst into laughter. "She bore you a son. You must be mistaken. When she drugged you, she was already a month pregnant. That child belonged to one of her patrons." Chongyang yanked the hairpin from her head and charged at the man. "Shut your mouth." But the hairpin was swiftly snatched away by Fu Chengyan, who glared at the man and demanded, "What did you say?" "Anna isn't my son." The man sneered contemptuously. "Back then, I delivered wine to the brothel madam every day. I heard with my own ears when she told your woman to get rid of the unwanted burden in her belly quickly, lest it interfere with her work. But she said she'd find a way. Who would have thought her solution was dragging you into it, pretending to cure your poison, claiming she was carrying your child. In truth, she'd planned it all along. That child belongs to someone else. If you don't believe me, test the blood yourself." Fu Chengyan roared in fury. "Someone, bring water. I will test our blood to prove kinship." Chongyang shook her head tearfully. "Husband, you would rather believe others than trust my word, is that it?" Fu Chengyan flung her hand away. "If you have nothing to hide, why are you so afraid?" Fujian shook his head desperately. "Father, I am your son. If word gets out that you tested our blood, what will people think of me?" No amount of explanation could suffice. Clear water was brought forth, and 2 drops of blood dripped into it. Soon, The result became clear. The 2 drops of blood slowly dispersed in the water, refusing to merge. Fu Chengyan grabbed Chongyang by the throat. "You dare deceive me, you wretched woman, I'll kill you." I ate grapes while watching this farce, then had all these people thrown out of the princess's residence. After returning to his residence, Fu Chengyan drove Chongyang and their son out of the Fu household. Having been pampered by him for so many years, Chongyang couldn't bear such hardship. She still had some private savings hidden away, so the mother and son rented a small courtyard to live in. However, with no income, they could only try to earn some copper coins by doing laundry for others. But Chongyang had been waited on hand and foot all these years, her hands never touching rough work. How could she endure it? Within less than half a month, she fell ill, and their money flowed out like water, soon completely spent. By the time Fu Jian went begging at Fu Chengyan's doorstep, he found the Fu residence empty, its occupants gone. Fu Chengyan, having been divorced by me and now embroiled in this farce, had no face left to stay in the capital. Overwhelmed by rage, he fell gravely ill. His clansmen, seeing no other option, sold the dilapidated family home for a few hundred taels of silver. With this money, they hired a rickety ox cart to take him back to their hometown. Before leaving, he sent a letter through a messenger. I unfolded it, only to find it filled with words of repentance. I tossed it into the brazier, watching the opera performers sing of a dream under the southern bow, and smiled faintly. My whole life seems like this play, and it's time to wake from the dream. The end.